I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. Many of you might have known that already, but just in case, I want to share that again. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, this is Baltimore County, not Baltimore City, by the way. Now, you can imagine sort of Baltimore County looks a lot like a sort of a wrist coming down and then a hand that's getting, and the city is inside there. So the city's constantly being squeezed by Baltimore County. And I was on the west side of the county, just outside of the city line. That's where I grew up. 18 years. It took them that long to find me and get me out. And we would have snow days. It would snow in Baltimore. And you know how kids can be with snow days, right? It's so excited. The forecast would come on, and we're going, golly, it's going to snow. And you also know how kids would be to make sure that it's going to snow and school is closed. We do all of our homework, right? Because that's what you do. You hear the snow is coming. And then as a kid, you do everything you can to prepare. So you've got everything. If you know the rest of the school year, you're not ready to go, you are ready to go when there's snow in the forecast. Because, you know, and if we had school, we found a kid who didn't do their homework. And we said, well, why didn't you do your homework? Because you knew the snow was coming, so we would prepare for it. We would get up that morning with great anticipation. We'd turn on the news or turn on the radio in some way, shape, or form. And Baltimore County schools, 1 hour delay. That's the start, right? That's the start. That's how it begins. Now, I said that Baltimore was kind of like this wrist and this hand, and I was on the west side of squeezing Baltimore City. Well, the rest of the county goes all the way up to the Pennsylvania state line. And it's a lot like Virginia Beach, actually, because you have the heavily populated area, and then in Baltimore County, as you go further north, it becomes more rural. And that was the Hereford zone. Or if you're from England, it's the Hereford zone. It was the Hereford zone. Baltimore County schools, 1 hour delay. Hereford zone, closed. Just the way it was. And I didn't appreciate it as a kid growing up. And as I got older and began to sort of experience life a little better and drove up in the Hereford zone and whatnot, I realized that, you know, because of population density and things along those lines, they were the last ones to get plowed. And the roads were narrow. There were a lot of times sort of farm paths and things along those lines. And so infrastructure-wise, it was great for rural living. It was horrible for snow plowing. The Hereford zone. But we were ready. We had our homework done. Our lunches were packed and sitting by the door with care. Battery just went out. So sitting by the door with care, we were ready to go. And as I've gotten older, I've lived in other places where we would get snow. I lived in Indianapolis. We get snow in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I lived in eastern North Carolina, and every once in a while it'd get snow out there. And I've lived here before as well. I was out in Chesapeake, and we got snow in Chesapeake. In fact, people would look at us funny because we'd get all bundled up and walk around in 2 inches of snow and had a grand time. And I have learned since growing up that having my homework done does not guarantee a snow day, but I have learned the importance of being ready, being prepared for what is coming. There was a meme that went around for North Carolina that talked about how many loaves of bread did you need to buy based on the storm, right? So it wasn't getting your homework done, it was how much bread did you need? Was this going to be a 1-loaf storm or a 5-loaf storm kind of thing? So I've lived in these other places, and I've learned the importance of being ready, of taking in the lessons of the past and applying them to my life now, having rock salt and a snow shovel, ice scrapers, if we're talking winter weather, but just being prepared in general. Because sometimes I would move into an area and folks would give me things, say, well, you need to have this to live here, but I would never actually work with that thing, and then suddenly the day came. Like if someone gave me a snowblower, I mean, I know the theory behind snowblowers, but I couldn't actually make it work until I played with it. And if I didn't play with it until there was 3 feet of snow on the ground, that could be frustrating. Faith is the same sort of thing, right? It is gifted to us. It is given to us. It is given to us by those who have gone before. And it's handed, and if we don't take it out and play with it, if we just operate on that, well, if I get my homework done tonight, because the snow is coming, everything will be okay. If I just operate on that level, then when something does happen, when Baltimore County gets a 1-hour delay and Hereford is closed, and I'm left going to school, I wonder what it is I might still have to learn. What it is I might still need to learn, because I'm not living in Baltimore anymore, but I am definitely living in the realm come near. The second scripture reading for this morning finishes the Sermon on the Mount. It comes to us starting with the 24th verse of the 7th chapter in the Gospel according to Matthew. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and acts on them will be like a wise man who built his house on rock. The rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell. And great was its fall. Now when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority and not as their scribes. May God's blessing be upon the experiences of Scripture on this day. May it guide the meditations of our hearts and continue to influence the words of my lips. It's the end of the Sermon on the Mount. That's it. There are some preachers today who actually planned on standing up and reading the whole Sermon on the Mount. One fell swoop. That was their sermon. And I thought, that's a great idea. But we've already been doing the Sermon on the Mount for 2 weeks. So maybe next year, when the Sermon on the Mount comes around, that might be what I do. Because to experience it in one fell swoop, as it is very possible Jesus presented it, or it is possible it is a collection of teachings. But in Matthew, Jesus took the people up the mountainside to be closer to God and delivered this long sermon. And he wraps it up with this image. Now, Jesus knows building. Tradition says he's a carpenter's son. More likely than not, he was not just a carpenter, but a builder. Jesus knows building. And the people around him would understand as well the importance of building on a solid foundation. And since moving here and having to learn what zone I live in, not the Hereford zone, but what zone I live in, yes, I appreciate some things. So Jesus wraps up this whole sermon, everything that he has done to this point, as he is talking about what it is to be part of the realm of God. And he brings it together and he says, listen, if you get the teaching, if you hear it, is the translation. But if you take it and bring it into your heart and then act on it, right? I can know the theory behind stuff, but if I don't actually apply it, if I don't let it come out, other than when I push the button and say, what is the Hereford zone? But I don't get any money for that because I'm not that smart. If I can take the things that have been given to me in and go from a go from a place of just sort of housing knowledge to a place of letting it flow out from my person to influence what I do. Jesus says, if you take it in and you act upon it, then you are building on this firm foundation, and you are understanding this totality of the Sermon on the Mount, which is the totality of his mission and ministry. He teaches it all up there. We heard lots of little bits of it, even this morning. And it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a challenge to take it in and then to begin to apply it, because we hear lots of things, we learn lots of things, we study lots of things, and we have our sort of little belief systems. If I just do my homework now, it will snow tonight. I just know it. And then there are those things that we take in and we say we believe it, but it never turns into an action. I say justice is important to me because God is a just God, but if I am not out actively living the just life, provoking the just life, then have I really heard and acted? Have I really built the house in the zone, in the way that it should be built? If I say that God is a God of mercy, and yet I don't enact mercy, have I really heard and embedded and then lived out? If I say that the realm is a realm of healing and wholeness, and yet I continue to engage and be part of a life and a society that fragments, well, all this means is I still have work to do. The church still has work to do. Work that we can engage in today, especially when we reflect on the zone we live in. Thanks be to God, and amen.